The movie opens with a search party looking for a couple that mysteriously went missing. Unbeknownst to them, there was a weird hole at the other end of the forest, and dogs happened to be stuck inside the hole with no way out. The dogs saw a cave nearby and drank from it. Few minutes later, a guy from the search party sighted the dogs, but they were just staring at each other in a disturbing way. He eventually took the dogs home and left them in his garage, but still, the dogs still maintained exactly the same posture from earlier. The dogs couldn't just seem to take their eyes of each other, then one of them started making straining human sounds. The man's son heard the dogs barking profusely, so he called his dad's attention to the garage. When the man got there, what he saw there was ultimately astonishing. The two dogs were fusing their body together. Elsewhere, Tim scanned through photos of happy times with family. His longtime girlfriend, Millie, came in to tell him everyone is waiting for them. Tim eventually joined with his guests outside, and it happened to be a send-off party, as Tim and Millie planned to move to the countryside so they can go to the next level in their relationship. Surprisingly, Millie proposed to Tim at the party. Tim initially thought it was a joke as he never saw this coming, so he stood there starstruck. Millie got back up feeling very embarrassed as she got no response from her proposal. Once night approached, Tim apologized to her for disgracing her in front of her friends. Millie, on the other hand, had doubts about the sincerity of their love, as he had grown distant of recent. Tim convinced her they're still in love, then they slept facing different directions. Tim woke up from a horrendous nightmare the next morning. The pair started unpacking their things in the new apartment. All of a sudden, Tim perceived a weird smell from upstairs, so he proceeded to check where it was coming from. Looking up, he unearthed the smell was coming from the ceiling, so he climbed a chair to ascertain what it was, and he was petrified to see it was a group of rotten rats tied together. Tim got startled discovering one of the rats is still mysteriously alive, but he didn't think about it much and just threw it away. Millie gets a job teaching elementary school English. At work, Jamie, her co-teacher, welcomed her to the school and they became friends instantly. Jamie is part of the hiring committee, so he was fortunate to read Millie's resume, which interested him as he felt it was utterly impressive. Jamie was throbbed on why someone of her caliber would choose to work here. Millie told him she's very much excited to be here as her last school was too big, but she has the passion of helping students individually, reason why she moved to a much smaller school. In the course of their discussion, Millie discovered that her and Jamie are actually neighbors, as he lives just opposite their apartment. Meanwhile, Tim, on the other hand, was an aspiring musician, so he practiced every night before he went to bed. Millie tried to get him to make love to her, but he insisted he needs to finish up first, so he promised her they'll make out tomorrow. The next morning, the couple embarked on a hiking journey around their new home. They stopped halfway, seemingly because they mistakenly took the wrong way. As they were looking around, Tim sighted a weird-looking bell in the forest, and on moving forward a little, he saw bells strategically placed to lead people down a route. They eventually decided to turn back and return home, and by that time, rain had already started falling heavily. They got lost in the process, so Tim tried to use the compass on his phone to find a way out. Tim suggested they kept on moving forward, but fell into a cave in the process. Millie tried to pull him out as he hasn't fallen completely, but instead, they both fell into the cave together. They were slightly relieved no injuries was sustained afterwards. Millie tried calling for help with her phone, but there was no signal. They started getting this weird feeling that the place is crowded and they're not alone, prompting them to urgently look for a means out. Seeing no way out, they decided to camp there for the night. Sighting a pool nearby, the couple started feeling extremely thirsty, so Tim gave Millie the last water they had left, then using his hands, he drank water from the strange pool inside the cave. On discovering the water was drinkable, he collected more with his water bottle and drank till his full. Millie saw Tim was visibly bothered, so she inquired what the problem was, and he told her he couldn't stop thinking about the rotten rats, because it brings up some sad memories from his childhood. He told her how he walked into his parents' room and saw his mom smiling weirdly at him, and it was because she couldn't handle the fact that her partner had passed away, so her brain just snapped. He told her he still has nightmares of that day up till now, and that smell has since haunted him. Moments later, the couple fell asleep, but while they were slumbering, a mysterious entity from the pool closed in on them. Tim woke up due to the strange sounds he was hearing, then he started breathing rapidly, as he was scared. Looking up, he saw that the vine above him was following his exact breathing sequence, and it literally seemed the entire cave was alive to him, but eventually, it happened to be just a nightmare. It was dawn already by the time they woke up. They tried standing up, but to their greatest surprise, their legs got conjoined together like it was bound by a strong glue. Carefully, they eventually managed to separate themselves. They didn't overthink it because everything around there was suddenly sticky. On spur of moment, they climbed their way out of the cave. Unbeknownst to them, their skin got torn from the separation, seeming like it was never glue in the first place. They hiked back home together, after which, Millie covered her phone in rice as remedy for falling into the water. Millie begged Tim to help massage her shoulder, but while he went on with it, he started yearning for her like never before, and the feeling enveloped him so much that he became lost in the process. He didn't realize he was squeezing too hard and hurting her. Millie had to hit his hand away before he regained consciousness. Tim apologized immediately, claiming it's because he's immensely tired from yesternight's events. Tim took a shower to cool off, while Millie drove into town to get some groceries. All of a sudden, Tim fell unconscious inside the bathroom. The further Millie drove away from him, he experienced mysterious episodes where he's overly drawn to her. Every single turn or move she makes affects him back at home, like they were one person in two separate bodies. He started shaking uncontrollably in the shower, with his head cracking open the wall, but he eventually regained consciousness and drifted back to reality. Tim wasn't himself anymore anytime he and Millie weren't together. He visited a doctor who diagnosed him of mental illness, stemming from being in an unfamiliar environment. In the course of their discussion, the doctor told him about a couple who got missing few months back, in exactly the same cave they fell into. The ones the search party were looking for at the beginning of the movie. Millie walked in on Tim researching about the missing couple. Navigating to their own profile, they discuss on how basic life is and how far they've come. On spur of moment, Millie's coworker, Jamie, shows up at their home to welcome them to the neighborhood. Before he left, Millie invited him over to have dinner with them. During dinner, they told Jamie of their horrific experience at the cave. Jamie told them that the cave was once a chapel for New Age church, until it mysteriously collapsed and caved into the ground. Jamie then appreciated them for a wonderful dinner as he went back home. Tim drew Millie closer and they started kissing afterwards, but their lips joined together in the process, and Millie thought it was Tim who bit her. Tim tried to explain to her the strange things that have been happening ever since their experience at the cave, but Millie shrugged them off as mere excuses he came up with to avoid making out with her. When they were sleeping, Millie turned on the lights to discover Tim choking on her hair. It was awfully terrifying as he couldn't let go no matter how hard Che tried, but he was finally able to pull it out after several trials. As they were shuddering, there was this brief moment of silence between them, trying to understand what just happened. The next morning, Millie drove Tim to the train station for a gig. Before he left, she told him to take his time and don't bother coming back, not in a bad way though, but just so he could get himself together and probably have new experiences. Immediately she drove off, Tim started having the same episodes all over again, and just like before, the farther she drove, the more his hallucinations increase uncontrollably. Due to this occurrence, he missed the train he was supposed to board. Tim couldn't help staying too far away from Millie, so he forcefully dragged himself to the school where Millie teaches. Millie rushed out immediately and hurriedly took him to a bathroom stall. There, Tim couldn't help himself so he started making love to her, and she didn't resist as she's been yearning for it for like forever. After they finished making out, their genitals got stuck together, and they found it challenging to separate themselves. As they were at it, someone spotted them and ran off instantly so they wouldn't notice, and it was at that moment, Millie forcefully separated herself from him, which hurt pretty badly. The child who saw them earlier called Jamie's attention to the situation, but Jamie handled it perfectly well and sent the boy back to class. As Jamie was leaving, he sighted Tim's leg. Millie vented her anger on Tim as they got home, forgetting her into that mess. They got into a heated argument which ended with Millie walking out on him. Millie headed straight to Jamie's house to apologize for what happened earlier. Seeing she was on the verge of crying, he invited her in, then offered her a glass of water to chill off. She opened up to him about her relationship problems with Tim. James relates with an ancient book written by Plato, Aristophanes' theory of the nature and origin of Eros, encouraging her not to let go of her partner, which he referred to as her other half. Millie inquired if he was the only one living here, so he told her about his relationship with his seemingly deceased husband. Jamie went to bring a tape of his wedding, and it was at this moment Millie saw Tim peeping them from outside. She left his house immediately on seeing this. Tim apologized for eavesdropping on their conversation and the way he was acting lately, like he couldn't do without her even though he tried. Millie felt at ease the moment they locked in their hands together, like her better half have completed her. That night, Tim got various messages from Luke asking why he missed his gig, but he wasn't even able to think of any other thing apart from Millie. On getting himself, Tim continued his research on the couple that went missing in the cave, only to discover their last known location was the cave. He zoomed in deeper on the picture, finding the bell that was at the cave in the picture, but as he tried to investigate more, his internet went off. All of a sudden, Millie startled him from the door. She was acting so strangely which made Tim scared. Tim opened the door only for her to jump on him and was convulsing. Tim had to slap the shit out of her before she regained consciousness. After this occurrence, they had a serious discussion on the things they've been experiencing lately and what to do about it. Tim proposed an experiment to test how they're drawn to each other, but she refused and walked out on him. She stopped on getting to the door, then Tim told her he was the one that wanted her to stop, and it happened just by him thinking about it. Tim suggested to go back to the cave to get answers, but instead of supporting him, she broke up with him instead. Even after she left, her blood on the table drew closer to him. That night, they decided to sleep separately from each other. Few minutes later, Tim woke up finding himself moving in full force towards Millie's room, and his body started contorting in unnatural ways. Almost exactly the same thing was happening to Millie at the same time, but hers was even far much worse, as her bones bent upside down. They tried their best to stay away from each other, but the force pulling them together was just too powerful. They felt a little relief immediately they made contact, but then their hands started fusing together, which was immensely painful. Millie reached for Tim's muscle-relaxing pills in the drawer. The pills scattered on the ground, and they chewed as many as possible to stop their limbs from contorting. They even snort in the pills to maximize the effects. Afterwards, they forcefully pushed their feet against each other, and on spur of moment, the two of them passed out from overdose. The next morning, Tim woke up to see Millie tying him to a chair. She promised him that everything is going to be fine, forced him to drink some booze, then she used a saw to separate their stuck arm. Millie heads over to Jamie's place to pick up the keys she left behind, while Tim quietly makes his way back to the cave. There, he discovers Simon and Carrie horrifyingly merged into one grotesque, human-like creature. Inside Jamie's house, Millie stumbles upon a television, playing footage of a strange ritual where two individuals are shown merging into one. Jamie, now revealed to be the outcome of that fusion, tells her they've found peace in becoming complete, and urges her to do the same with Tim. When she refuses, he slashes her arm, mirroring the cuts shown in the video, before she manages to flee. Millie finds Tim outside, in their driveway. He threatens to end his life in order to protect her, despite her desperate pleas. As Millie begins to lose consciousness from her bleeding wound, Tim presses his arm against it, merging his flesh with hers to stop the bleeding. The two profess their love for each other and begin to dance slowly to two become one, holding each other as their bodies combine into one entity. Later that weekend, Millie's parents arrive for a visit. They knock on the door, now marked with the same cave symbol, and are met by a calm, gender-ambiguous figure who appears perfectly normal. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. Thank you.